So a college student completed some courses worth 3 credits and some courses worth 4 credits. The student earned a total of 59 credits after completing 18 courses. How many courses worth 3 credits did the student complete? So there's a few different ways to solve this problem. The algebraic way we'll do first, and then after that we'll work backwards from the answer. So if you want to study this type of problem, it's a systems of equations word problem. So the way that you do systems of equations word problems is you are going to make 2 equations that each have 2 variables in them. So let's define our variables first. And so X is going to be our courses worth 3 credits. And Y is going to be our courses worth 4 credits. And these are real things in college. There were 3 or 4 credits, your classes. The 4 credit ones are usually like a 3 credit class plus a lab, just in case if you were wondering. So for our first equation, we've got a total of 59 credits. And so some are worth 3 and some are worth 4. So our equation would be, I'll write this one in green, 3x plus 4y equals 59. And our second equation would be the total number of courses. So 18 courses. And so we've got some courses and some courses. So that just means that it's x plus y equals 18. Okay. If you guys remember from our systems of equations unit, we have 3 different ways to solve. We have by graphing, we have substitution, and we have elimination. And so for this one, let's use substitution. So we have to solve for a variable first. So I'm going to solve for x in my second equation. So then I'm going to have x equals 18 minus y. I'm going to take what x equals and plug it in for x in the other equation. So we've got 3 times 18 minus y plus 4y equals 59. And now we're solving for y. So I'm going to distribute first. 3 times 18 is 24 plus 30, which is 54, minus 3y plus 4y equals 59. We can combine like terms, so it's 54 plus y equals 59. And then we're solving for y, so we subtract 54 from both sides, and we get y equals 5. So 5 is the number of courses worth 4 credits, and it's asking for courses worth 3 credits. So we have to solve for that other variable. And the way we can do that is we know that they add up to 18. So if one of them is 5, then the other one is 13. Okay, so there's our first problem. Again, if you guys want a more complex explanation of these types of problems, Google system of equations word problems, and there will be lots of YouTube videos explaining different types of word problems that might come up with systems of equations and how to solve them. Another way that you could have done this problem is first, you could have seen that Answers C and D are 20 and 39. Both of those are bigger than 18. Therefore, they cannot be like answers. So we could have automatically crossed off C and D. And then we could have just plugged in 13 and 5 for X to see which one would work. So like, for example, if I had 13 worth 3 credits, how many would I have that are worth 4 credits, and so on and so forth. And then you can kind of figure it out based on that. So let me check the chat and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay. So number 2 on your quiz and number 26 on this STAAR test says the graph of a linear function f passes through the point 1, -9, and has a slope of -3. Okay, so we've got important information here and here. So remember, slope is the rate of change. It is change in y over change in x. And it is also m in our equations, and it is rise over run. All of those things are slope, okay? And it says, what is the zero of f? So here's another vocab word. So what is a zero? Well, there's 2 places that an equation is going to hit 0, and that's on the y-axis and that's on the x-axis. So a 0 is in algebra 1 where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, and they give you this handy dandy graph on your test, which for you guys it's going to be online. So on a scratch sheet of paper you might want to draw this. So we are going to go to the point 1, -9. So that is, remember, it goes x comma y. So I'm going to go to 1 on the x-axis, -9 on the y-axis, which is right here. And then my slope is -3, which means it should be going down from left to right. Okay, so I can't really go down from this point to the right. So I'm going to go up from this point to the left. So it should be going, each point should go a rise of 3 and a run of 1. Okay, because this as a fraction is, sorry, not that, 3 over 1, -3 over 1. So up 3 over 1 would be right here. And then we can keep drawing our points in the same direction. And this is what our line should look like. Always double check and look at your line. Okay, it's supposed to have a negative slope, so it should be going down from left to right. A lot of people make the mistake of going, okay, 3 over 1, and then they go in this direction because it seems like the only direction that you can go. And that's where they get this wrong answer of 4. Okay, so it's not 4 because that is a positive slope that I just drew in blue. So the negative slope is in red and it crosses at -2. So our answer is J. All right, number 27. What is the value of the y-intercept of the graph of h of x equals 29 times 5.2 to the x power? Remember, this h of x thing, I see a lot of people tripping up on this. That is the same thing as y, okay? You do not have to mess around with the h of x. So it wants to know the y-intercept. When we cross the y-axis, our x value is 0. Okay, so y-intercept means x equals 0. So what we're going to do is plug in 0 for x. So that would be 29 times 5.2, oops, not 5.9, to the 0 power. You could plug that into the calculator, or you could know that everything to the 0 power equals 1. So it would be 29 times 1, which is just 29. And that's your answer. Moving on. What question are we going to stop at? 32? Okay. The graph of a quadratic function is shown on the grid. Which function is best represented by the graph? So this is just like the problems we've been doing. We're going to plug it into y equals. We're going to compare the graphs. So let me get my calculator set up. Okay, so this is what I had pulled up from yesterday. So I'm going to clear out what's in my y equals. If you were not in y equals, if you were just at the beginning, then you would click the y equals button, which is in the top left-hand corner. And then we are going to plug in those equations, which I'm going to pull those up on my computer now so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, here we go. All right, so my equations are x squared. Remember, the x button is to the right of alpha. Minus 3x minus 9. And then keep going. X squared plus 3x minus 9. X squared minus 6x. X squared plus 6x. All right, so I've got them all plugged in to y equals, which is what you guys should be doing right now. Remember, if you miss a problem, you're going to have to go back and watch the video once it gets uploaded. Okay, so now I'm going to hit graph. And let's see what these look like. Okay, so these are our options. Now let's go back to the problem. And so I know that my like U-shaped thing, which is called a quadratic in case you were wondering, should be on the right-hand side of the x-axis. So that rules out the pink and red graphs. So now it's between blue and black. And black crosses at about 0, 0, and the one in the problem crosses at 0, 0. So it looks like black is going to be our best option. So I'm going to go to y equals and see which one that is. And that's my third answer choice. So I am going with C. So we've got our third answer choice. Okay. Get my okay. So moving on to number 29. It says which equation or which expression is equivalent to this. So this is literally going to be the same process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this one into y1, and then this is going to be y2, y3, y4, and y5. And I'm going to see which two graphs match. So again, we're just going to our calculator. We're going to go to y equals and clear everything out. Your calculator is a huge tool, you guys. So we got 24x squared minus 22x plus 5. And then we've got 12x plus 5, 2x plus 1. Oh, and by the way, normally in normal years, we would have you guys factor this problem, but obviously, like, your calculator is your fail-safe. You don't have to do any crazy factoring. Usually you can just match up the two graphs. So plugging these in. Remember that the parentheses are right above numbers 8 and 9. So 2x minus 1. And then 8x plus 5. 3x plus 1. Okay, so I've got my 5 quadratic functions plugged in. 2 of them should match up. So I should have one line on top of the other somewhere. And so I can't really tell from here, so I'm going to zoom in. Zoom in. Keep zooming in. Remember, the zoom button is in the top at the middle. And it's kind of hard to tell, but there are 4 lines and there should be 5. So that means the 2 are overlapping. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is erase one at a time. So first I'm going to erase my green graph and see if there's still a line where the green is. So take that one off, and there's not one. Now I'm going to take off the red. Okay, there wasn't another one on there. Let's try the black. Okay, and then so if I take off the pink one, there should be a blue line underneath it. So I take that off, and there it is. All right, so that means that the pink one was my option, which was the 3rd one down, which means the answer was C. Okay, the other way to do this problem is to factor it. So remember, with factoring, we have the big X with A times C on top, B on the bottom. So 24 times 5 is 120. 120, is that right? Yes, 120. And then we got negative 22 on the bottom. So we'd be finding 2 numbers that multiply to equal 120, add to equal negative 22. So that would be what, like 10 times 12. So it'd be negative 10, negative 12. Then remember, we divide by our A value. This simplifies to negative 1/2. This simplifies to negative 5 over 12. Then we go bottoms up. So it's 12x minus 5 and 2x minus 1, which was our answer. So if you would rather factor using the big X, you can do that instead of the calculator. Okay, number 30. A system of equations is graphed on the grid. Which system of equations does the graph represent? Okay, again, we're just plugging these options into y equals. So I'm going to plug these into y equals. Plug in F and then G and then H and then J. I'm going to look at the graphs and see if it looks like the graph on the problem. So again, we go to y equals. We've got, pull up this problem on my computer. Our first options are negative x. Remember, you don't put in the y equals part because we are in the y equals part of the calculator. So negative x minus 4 and 2x minus 2. Hit graph. I need to zoom out. So remember, you press the zoom button, you scroll down to zoom out. Remember, you cannot use your fingers to do this to zoom out on the test. Okay, so this one crosses in the wrong quadrant. The 2 lines are supposed to cross in the top left-hand corner area. So I know it's not F. So I can cross off F. And now I'm going to plug in G. So we've got negative x plus 4 and 2x minus 4. So I'm just deleting those numbers and replacing them. And plug it in, and then look at the graph. Those cross in the top right-hand corner, so it's not G. Now we plug in H. So H is just x minus 4 and negative 2x minus 2. Look at the graph. Crosses in the bottom right-hand quadrant. So we know that it's not that. So it's not H. Hopefully J works. Otherwise, we are out of luck. So we go to Y equals. We go X plus 4 and negative 2X minus 4. Look at the graph. It crosses where it's supposed to, so it's J. Obviously, there are more algebraic ways to do this. You could have figured out exactly what the answer was for each of these. And because the answer is where the two equations cross in a system of equations. You could have actually gone on the graph and graphed these lines. You could have found the slope and the y-intercept of each line. So this slope would have been 1 up 2 over 2, which is 1, and our y-intercept would have been 4. So I knew one of the equations would be y equals x plus 4. You could have actually found out the equations by doing that. So there are literally a million ways to solve each problem on the STAAR test. If you get the right answer, then keep doing what you're doing. Number 31, the table represents some points on the graph of the exponential function. Which function represents the same relationship? Again, we are plugging these into y equals. The only difference is that we're going to be looking at the table instead of the graph. So I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to plug in my 4 equations. So for A, I've got 15 times 5 divided by 6 to the x power. Remember, to make it to the x power, you press the caret button, which is right above divide, okay? You guys should be plugging this into your phone as I go so that you can practice and get this muscle memory. If you can't find the caret button on the test, your proctor on the STAAR test is not going to be able to tell you where it is. So if you don't practice your calculator now, you're going to be lost whenever you get to the test. Okay, so I plugged in my 4 equations. Now I'm going to go to the table, which remember you hit the blue button, which is second, and then you hit graph. And I'm going to find which ones match. So the first point that should match is -2 and 12.5. So I need to scroll up. All right, and there's only one option that has 12.5 for -2. Let's check, and then it goes to 15, 18, 21.6, and it matches perfectly. So my answer is B. All right, number 32, last question for the day. The table shows the amount of pet food and cups remaining in an automatic feeder as a function of the number of meals the feeder has dispensed. Based on the table, which function best represents this model? Okay, so we need to figure out the slope and the y-intercept of this graph. So first, by figuring out the slope, remember slope is m equals change in y over change in x. So this is going to be our x and this is going to be our y. It normally goes in order. So our change in x is going to be 2, 3, 1. Change in y is 6, 9, and 3. So on all of those, our change in y would be 6 over 2, 9 over 3, or 3 over 1, which means our slope is 3. So I can cross, oh, sorry. This went down 6, down 9, down 3, so it should be negative numbers. So our slope is -3, not -1/3. You would get -1/3 if you accidentally put the x's on top. And then we have to figure out what our y-intercept is going to be. So it's either going to be 24 or 64. And remember, our y-intercept happens when x is 0. So if x was 0, which is 1 more up, what would be one more up here? Okay, and it's like it's either going to be 24 or 64. 64 is like a ridiculously high number. So we can cross off H and our answer is F. Another way to do this would have been to plug all of these into y equals, looked at the table, and figured out which one matched, just like we did on the last problem. Okay, I was just trying to mix it up for you guys. This is the mathy way to do it. You didn't actually have to do math. You could have just used your calculator. Remember how big of a tool your calculator is on the STAAR test. Okay, at least use it to check your answers. Okay. So that's all we've got for today. If you have